Hey there, welcome to my channel. And today we're going to be talking about three major global commodities: coffee, tea, and chocolate. These are all products that are grown in one part of the world and then traded internationally, so they can be consumed around the world. In fact, these are among the most traded commodities in the world. And if you want to review all the key concepts related to economics and geography, be sure to check out my review packet for AP Human Geography or AP World. You can find links to those in the description below. Okay, let's get started with coffee. The exact origin of coffee is difficult to determine, but it is believed to have originated in Ethiopia and then spread to Yemen, and then from there across the Middle East. Coffee plants grow naturally in Ethiopia and the forests of southwestern Ethiopia are thought to be the natural habitat of the wild ancestors of modern Arabica coffee. But people began cultivating coffee trees in Yemen as early as the 15th century. By the 16th century, coffee houses had become popular in cities like Mecca and Medina, where the religious leaders used them to stay awake during long periods of prayer. Then by the 17th century, coffee had spread to Persia, Turkey, and Egypt. European travelers who encountered coffee in the Middle East brought the idea back to Europe, where it first became popular in Italy, and then France, and then Britain. Eventually, coffee made its way to the Americas, first arriving in the West Indies, and then later to Brazil. Today, Brazil is actually the largest producer of coffee in the world. The popularity of coffee is easy to explain. For many people around the world, it is the most important stimulus that they consume during the day. It's really effective at waking us up because coffee beans contain caffeine, which is a stimulant drug. And that's why coffee is illegal in some places like Iran and Saudi Arabia, because of its psychoactive effects. Of course, coffee is now legal everywhere else, and in 2018, approximately 2.2 billion cups of coffee were drunk every single day around the world. That averages out to over 3 cups per person per day. And coffee is especially popular in Nordic countries like Finland, Norway, and Sweden, where people drink more than twice the amount of coffee as people in the United States. But just because coffee is so widely consumed doesn't mean that it's easy to produce. Coffee plants will only grow in tropical climates between the tropics of Cancer and Capricorn. So coffee is not grown in the continental US or Canada or Japan or any other country north of those tropics. Within those latitudes, however, coffee plants thrive. And coffee is an extremely labor-intensive crop. Coffee berries grow on trees and must be picked by hand. Then, once they are picked, they have to be sorted and processed and dried and then shipped. That's why coffee is such an expensive commodity. In fact, it's the second most expensive commodity in the world behind diamonds and before gold. This means that even though hundreds of countries around the world grow coffee, only a few account for most of the world's supply. The top 5 producers of coffee in the world are Brazil, Vietnam, Colombia, Indonesia, and Ethiopia. Together, these countries account for nearly half of all coffee produced in the world. And most of this production is located on large plantations where a single company owns thousands of acres of land dedicated to growing coffee. Plantations are often located in remote areas of countries, which makes it hard for workers to get to and from their jobs. And this contributes to the low wages that coffee growers earn. Even though coffee is an expensive commodity for consumers, coffee growers typically receive less than $1 for every pound of coffee that they grow. So low prices make it hard for coffee farmers to earn a profit. So in order to make ends meet, many farmers must supplement their income with other cash crops or by working in other industries. Another problem with coffee is that it is susceptible to certain diseases like leaf rust, which can completely destroy an entire crop. Coffee rust was responsible for destroying 75% of the coffee plants in Central America in the 1960s, and this disease continues to threaten coffee crops to this day. In response to these challenges, coffee growers have developed new strains of coffee plants that are more resistant to diseases and pests. But these efforts are costly and risky, and small farmers often don't have the capital necessary to invest in these types of projects. Despite these challenges, coffee remains an important commodity for both consumers and producers. For consumers, coffee provides a cheap and easy way to get a quick energy boost. For producers, coffee provides an important source of income. Most of the coffee grown around the world is Arabica coffee, which is known for its high quality and rich flavor. However, there is also a cheaper type of coffee, known as Robusta coffee. Robusta coffee is often used in blends and instant coffees, because it has a stronger flavor and higher caffeine content. But it's not as prized by connoisseurs. In recent years, the demand for specialty coffees has been growing. Specialty coffees are typically Arabica coffees that are grown in small batches and are graded very highly based on their quality. Specialty coffees often come from specific regions and have unique flavor profiles. They're usually more expensive than other types of coffees, but they appeal to consumers who are willing to pay more for a high-quality product. In general, however, coffee consumption is decreasing in some parts of the world and increasing in others. In North America, for example, coffee consumption has been declining, while in Asia, it's been growing. As incomes rise in developing countries, people are able to purchase more coffee. And as coffee drinkers become more sophisticated, they're willing to spend more on specialty coffees. Okay, let's move on and talk about tea. Tea is believed to have originated in China as early as 2737 BCE. Legend has it that the Emperor Shennong was boiling water when leaves from a nearby tree fell into his pot. He noticed that the water had turned a lovely amber color and tasted very sweet and refreshing. And that's how tea was discovered. From here, tea spread throughout China, and then to Japan, and then eventually to Europe via Portuguese missionaries. During the 17th century, tea became very popular in England. To pay for the tea that they desired, the British began exporting large quantities of it to the American colonies in exchange for food. And this led to the establishment of the first permanent English colony in North America. Today, tea is the second most popular drink in the world after water. It's especially popular in Asia, where 40% of the world's tea comes from. Just like coffee, tea is a stimulant because it contains a chemical called tannic acid, which stimulates our central nervous system. But unlike coffee, tea does not contain caffeine, so it's not as strong of a stimulant as coffee. The top producers of tea in the world are China, India, Kenya, Sri Lanka, and Turkey. Most of this production is concentrated in East Africa and South Asia. Tea is also labor-intensive to produce. Tea pickers typically work on large plantations owned by multinational companies. And much like coffee pickers, tea pickers often work for very low wages. Just like coffee, tea is also prone to certain diseases, including a fungal disease known as tea blight. Tea blight can quickly destroy an entire tea crop. And this disease is especially problematic in India and Sri Lanka, where it has caused widespread crop failures. But tea growers are constantly working to develop new strains of tea that are resistant to tea blight. Despite these challenges, tea remains an important commodity for both consumers and producers. For consumers, tea provides a tasty and relaxing beverage that can be enjoyed hot or cold. For producers, tea provides an important source of income. Like coffee, tea consumption is also changing around the world. In some parts of the world, such as in the United Kingdom, tea consumption is declining. In other parts of the world, such as in China and India, tea consumption is growing. So overall, however, tea is still the second most popular drink in the world after water. And finally, let's talk about chocolate. The cacao plant, from which chocolate is derived, is believed to have originated in the Amazon basin. Evidence suggests that the Maya were the first to cultivate cacao, and they grew it in the Yucatan Peninsula and Central America as far back as 1900 BCE. The Maya used cacao beans as a form of currency, and they also used them to make a bitter drink that they considered to be a gift from the gods. From here, cacao spread to other parts of Mesoamerica, and the Aztec Empire was growing cacao in the 14th century. When the Spanish conquered the Aztecs, they took cacao back to Europe. There, they added sugar to the mix and created a chocolate drink that was popular among the nobility. Eventually, chocolate became popular among the masses, and it was during this time that the first chocolate houses appeared. These were places where people could go to drink chocolate. The popularity of chocolate grew in Europe throughout the 17th and 18th centuries, and it eventually made its way to the Americas. Today, most of the world's chocolate comes from West Africa, where it's grown on large plantations. The top producers of cocoa are Ivory Coast, Ghana, Indonesia, Nigeria, and Ecuador. Together, these countries account for 2/3 of all cocoa produced in the world. Cocoa is a labor-intensive crop to grow. Farmers must harvest the pods from the cacao tree, extract the beans, ferment, dry, and sort the beans, and then ship them to factories where they're processed into chocolate. Because of this, cocoa is an expensive commodity. In fact, it's the third most expensive commodity in the world, behind diamonds and before gold. This means that even though dozens of countries around the world grow cocoa, only a few account for most of the world's supply. There are also certain diseases that can devastate an entire cocoa crop. One such disease is the swollen shoot virus disease, which can cause the death of an entire cocoa tree. This disease is especially problematic in West Africa, where it has caused massive crop failures. But cocoa farmers are constantly working to develop new strains of cocoa that are resistant to these diseases. Despite these challenges, cocoa remains an important commodity for both consumers and producers. For consumers, cocoa provides a tasty treat that can be enjoyed in many different forms. For producers, cocoa provides an important source of income. Fortunately, cocoa farmers typically earn less than $1 for every pound of cocoa that they grow. So even though chocolate is an expensive commodity for consumers, chocolate growers earn very little money. Alright, I hope that helped. If you want even more help, check out my review packet. I've got videos right here on all the other topics. If you want me to keep making these videos, be sure to subscribe.